The small town diner smelled of bacon grease and fresh coffee. It was the kind of place where regulars gathered every morning, where the booths were worn, and the jukebox hadn't been updated since the 80s. In the corner, by the window streaked with the soft light of dawn, sat Frank Hayes, an 81-year-old veteran of the Vietnam War. His hands shook as he lifted his chipped mug, the wrinkles on his face telling the story of a man who had seen more battles than anyone should. Frank lived alone. His wife had passed a decade ago, and his son, though he called every now and then, was a mystery to most of the townsfolk. All they knew was that Frank walked with a limp, wore his old army jacket wherever he went, and paid for his coffee with quarters and dimes he carefully counted out. That morning, Frank had just folded his hands to say grace over a modest plate of scrambled eggs when trouble walked in. The door swung open, and in came a thug in his 20s, loud, restless, the type who thought cruelty made him powerful. He strutted to the counter, shoving past a waitress, barking for service. When his eyes fell on Frank's jacket with the faded U.S. Army patch, something twisted in him. "Old man," he sneered, marching over. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Frank didn't answer. He'd lived long enough to know silence was sometimes the best shield. But silence, to the thug, felt like defiance. With a sudden burst of anger, the thug slapped Frank across the face. The sound cracked through the diner. Plates rattled. Conversations froze. The veteran's head snapped to the side, his frail body trembling from the blow. Gasps echoed. A waitress whispered, "Somebody call the police," but no one moved. Fear held the room hostage. Frank, with dignity, slowly turned back. His cheek burned red, but his voice was steady, almost gentle. "Son," he said softly, "I fought so you could live in a country where you're free, even free to hate me. But you don't know what real battles are." The thug laughed cruelly, towering over him. You're nothing but a relic. Should have stayed in the past." But before another word could leave his lips, the diner door opened again. Boots, heavy, synchronized, the kind of steps that carried both weight and authority. Heads turned. In walked a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, leather vest stitched with the patch of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. His beard was peppered with gray, his eyes sharp as steel. And behind him, like a storm rolling in, came several more bikers, their presence filling the room with an unshakable energy. The thug's smirk faltered. The man at the front froze when he saw the old veteran. His voice cracked, raw with emotion. "Dad." The diner went silent. Every head turned, realizing who had just walked in. The thug staggered back, confused. "Wait. He's your dad." The biker clenched his fists, stepping between Frank and the thug. His jaw tightened, but there was no mistaking the tears welling in his eyes. "Yes," he growled. "That man you just hit is my father. A soldier, a hero, and the only reason I'm standing here today." The thug tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in his throat as the Hells Angels closed in, forming a wall of leather and steel behind the veteran's son. The leader, Frank's son, leaned down until his face was inches from the thug's. "You've got two choices," he said in a low, dangerous tone. "You walk out that door and never lay a hand on another elder again, or you learn the hard way what respect means." The thug's bravado crumbled, his face went pale. Without another word, he bolted, stumbling over chairs, pushing through the door, vanishing into the street. The diner exhaled as if the whole room had been holding its breath. Frank's son turned back to him, his tough biker image breaking. He knelt beside his father, his hand trembling as he gently touched the red mark on his cheek. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have been here. I should have." His voice cracked. "I know I wasn't around much after Mom passed. I thought riding with the club would fill the emptiness. But it didn't. Nothing did. Except now, I see what matters." Frank's eyes softened. He placed a weathered hand over his son's. "Son, you came home. That's enough." Tears streamed down the biker's face, unashamed. He turned to the waitress and said, "Bring my dad whatever he wants. From now on, his meals are on me." Then, to the room, his voice rang like a vow. "Any man or woman who served this country will be honored. No more sitting alone, no more being forgotten." The other bikers nodded, their gruff faces filled with respect. Some saluted the old veteran, others quietly laid cash on the counter. Frank's eyes shimmered, his heart swelling not just from the act of protection, but from the gift of reconciliation. The son he thought he had lost was standing proudly by his side. The diner slowly returned to life, but with a new energy. People smiled, clapped, even approached Frank to shake his hand. For the first time in years, the old veteran felt truly seen, truly valued. As the morning sun broke through the window, Frank whispered, "Maybe the battles we fight aren't just on foreign soil. Maybe the hardest ones are here, between anger and forgiveness, between loneliness and love." And as his son sat beside him, surrounded by brothers who had once been outlaws but now stood as protectors, Frank realized something: sometimes, family doesn't just wear blood, it wears leather, too. Closing narration. And so, an act of cruelty turned into a moment of redemption. A slap meant to humiliate gave way to a reunion that healed a broken family. In the end, kindness, respect, and love proved stronger than hate. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us that even in the darkest places, light still shines.